A very good morning to you from wherever you are. I take this chance to welcome you once again to the Morning Brew Show, where agriculture meets finance, where agriculture meets entrepreneurship, where agriculture meets innovation and technology, where agriculture meets the market trends and the market news that are latest in town and latest in the country. This is your host, Benson Numa, and I welcome you to today's show, The Morning Brew, focusing majorly on the agri-finance. Now, when it comes to agriculture, a lot of things comes into consideration. And one thing stands up to be a key thing when it comes to agriculture. That is the issue about finance. Let me break this down. When you start a business or when you get into agriculture, by default, you're into business. So if you rear chicken for eggs that you sell to a market or a targeted audience, if you do farming of crops and then you take the crops and take them to the market, by default, you are doing agribusiness or you are into entrepreneurship. And one thing remains a fact when it comes to business, and that is the fact that you need finances for you to be involved in business. You need finances, you need capital. And even if you don't go and mobilize capital, you need profits, you need interest, and you need to understand, am I making losses or am I running at a loss? And most agricultural people, most farmers do not put this into consideration. So they don't sit down to think, if today I begin this thing or if today I go into this practice, is this going to be profitable for me or is it going to be a losing venture for me? The last time that we had the agri-finance show, I remember we mentioned that most people, as they go into agriculture, they never think about the input and what they have to put in as the efforts to produce good crops or good products. All they think about is the finances that they get after they've done all the work. So you've put in months of labor, you've put in a lot of work, inputs, fertilizers, anything that helps and goes into developing your farm or developing what you do. And then the moment that you're done, you get paid and you don't calculate, does this amount that I'm being paid add up? Does it bring the profits? Does it make sense to me? Is it a math that is going to work out for me in the long run, or is it a math that is not going to work out for me? And this is the very reason why agriculture has become so unsustainable for many small-scale farmers. Because they go into agriculture, yes, they do it as a business, but they don't put into consideration the fact that this could be their business, this could be their venture. Remember the last time we said, anytime you're into agriculture, You are a founder. You're not just a farmer. You're not just someone working on the ground. You're not just someone tilling the ground. You are a farmer who is a founder. So you kind of need to sit down and bring a cohesion of the two, getting to understand that as a farmer, I need to make money. Because most of us nowadays, what we do in agriculture, we are doing it to produce money. And so if it's not producing money for you, then it's not going to make sense for you. And if it's not a profitable venture for you, then it simply means that it's not something that you're willing to work around with. It's not something that will be sustainable. So we are having a lot of farmers starting out today. You've been doing farming for the rest of your life, but you have nothing to show. You have nothing to prove. You have nothing at all that you have achieved through that. Of course, let's give flowers where flowers are needed. There are farmers who have educated their children, paid their rents, bought lands, and done a lot of stuff through farming. But you see, when it comes to business and when it comes to the entire aspect of thinking about finance and entrepreneurship, it calls for you to be intentional. Not only intentional about how you do your cropping or how you do your animal rearing, but actually being intentional about exactly how do you manage the finances. How do you, any time that you put anything into business, the moment that you sit it down there and you think, I'm going to put this into consideration and I'm going to employ a certain technology, I'm going to employ a worker, I'm going to have a staff who's been working on the farm, you have to think, does it respond to the profits that I'm looking for? Does it bring the profits that I'm looking for as an entrepreneur? Because if it doesn't bring this into your business, then you never get to a point whereby you're succeeding. So welcome to the Morning Brew Show. That is just an introduction to help you understand exactly what goes into agriculture and what I want you to think when it comes to agri-finance. Because I don't want you just to sit down and think this is finance. I don't want you to just sit down and think that this is the only way that this thing is going to happen. We are going to be bringing you experts who will train you on financial literacy as a farmer. Farm leaders and movement makers in the market and in the industry who will help you understand exactly how do I do this in the best way. Because some of us, let's be honest, some of us do not even understand. So ensure to send in your comments. Ensure to let us know exactly where you're watching us from. Ensure to let us know how this show is impacting you. Ensure to let us know how this one is going for you. Ensure that you let us know exactly what you are looking for when it comes to agriculture. If you're a farmer, let this be the show that you watch and you get to learn. So let me know where you're listening us from. Let me know where you're getting us from. I'm waiting for your comments and welcome to the show. Now, let's jump right in. Now, when it comes to agriculture and when it comes to agri-finance, I'm going to break it into 3 phases that are going to be really helpful to you as a farmer, especially a smallholder farmer or someone who is thinking, I'm going to get into farming. Number one thing that I want to break down is what we call the expenses. Now, what is an expense? An expense, basically what it means is anything that you need to spend your own money into so that you can bring in to your business. So anything that you need to buy from people so that you can use it in business, that is an expense. Any day, anytime, that will be an expense. For example, if I want to grow, let's say, potatoes, and I want to get them on my farm, I'm going to need to buy fertilizers, I'm going to need to buy the seedlings, and I'm going, of course, to come up with a way that I'm going to get water and labor on the farm. So everything that I pay to ensure that the potatoes can grow, all right, that becomes the expense for me as a farmer. Why is this important? Now, this tells you exactly how much do you need and what do you need to do with it so that you do farming. Exactly how much does it take for you to do effective farming in your business or on your farm. And it also allows you to understand how can I get this better and cheaper. The good thing about expenses is that they tell you exactly how much do you need to sell your products at and are you making profits or losses, because minus expenses you have nothing to work with from the income that you get. So remember, the simple maths when it comes to business is that you take your income, you minus or you subtract the expenses, and that gives you the profit. That gives you the net profit once you take your net income and then once you take your gross income and your gross expenses and then you subtract, you get your net profits. But we have not yet gotten to the profits. Let me explain this now about expenses. In farming, what you need to do is understand exactly if I'm going to run this business and if I'm going to do it in the best way that I know how. Of course, it's going to cost you money. It's going to cost you water. It's going to cost you fertilizers. At least, if not anything else, it's going to cost you the seedlings. Whether you bought them from a nearby store or you took them from your granary or your storage facility, it's still an expense on your end. So when you're starting a business or when you're starting your farming, the first thing that you put into mind is that this is going to cost me some money. And the money that this one is going to cost me, of course, it has to be money I've calculated for. You've heard a number of people say, I remember growing up with my grandma, when we were in the rural area or in the village, I remember her putting some money aside and saying, this one will buy the seeds, this one will buy the fertilizers, this one is going to be for other inputs that might be needed, maybe pesticides or insecticides. It just depends exactly how much have you set apart. Now, from that one, she could be able to calculate. Now, if doing farming 1 acre, we are going to use maize, for example. Let's say planting maize 1 acre will cost you around 10,000, right? Roughly, as a small holder, or even half an acre, whatever you're doing. Let's say your expense is 10,000. The 10,000 you have is the money you're planning to use to pay someone to till the land, is the money you're planning to pay someone to irrigate there if we are not in a rainy season. The 10,000 is what you're going to use to buy the seeds, and it's still the one that you're going to use to buy the fertilizer. Now, once you spend the 10,000, that is the expense in money, we get to another level that most people don't think about, and that is what we call sweat capital, or what we refer to as sweat money. Now, this is it. Your money, your sweat can be your money, and it can be the time that you take, all right? What this simply means is that between the expense that you spent to get the seeds and stuff, maybe you did not pay someone to work on your farm with this 10,000. Remember, you need to pay yourself for each and every day you had to watch the seeds grow, for every day that you needed to wait for it to be due for harvesting. Number two, you need to pay yourself the entire labor you put in, because though you even hire other people to do the work for you, let's be honest, you're going to be involved directly. Actually, not indirectly, but directly. You're going to be involved maybe in ensuring there is security. You're going to be involved to ensure that you go there and check on your crops, how they are doing and how far you are before you go to the harvest. So when you think about all of these things, they make up your expense table, and you can tabulate them in one row and say that I spend 3,000 to buy fertilizers, I spent 3,000 to buy seedlings, I spent 2,000 on labor, I spent 1,000 to ensure that I could pump water here through electricity, and I spent this and that, and I spent this amount of days. And then you sit down and think, as a farmer, how much do I think I'm worth per day? That now depends. Maybe you had to wait for 2 months. You need to think, how much do you want to pay yourself for every month from what you're doing? That is why smallholder farmers, sometimes they find it harder for them to commercialize or to monetize effectively their farming. Because usually when you are doing farming in a smallholder kind of a setup, it doesn't give you the advantage of, or what we call the economies of scale, and also profit kind of interest for you. Because if you're planting in small scale and then you want to pay yourself and you think you're worth, there's nothing wrong with you thinking that you are worth 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, even 100,000. But if what you're planting cannot be able to amount to that amount of money, then you could be running at a loss. And that is why I tell people, if you must do farming for business, if you must get into farming for business, you need to calculate this expense table. You need to sit down with your expense table and think about it. How much do you want to pay yourself? What time do you think it's effective for you to wait? And how much are you willing to invest? Because what I would usually advise anyone who thinks of getting into farming at a small scale is that go into something that doesn't take too long to mature. Go into something that doesn't take too long between the foundational level of starting it to the time that it gets to market. Because if it takes too long and it's something that you've done in a small scale, it doesn't give you the profits that you deserve. Even if you try to price it premiumly, this is a product and it is a perfect competition market. Other people are doing what you're doing. You cannot claim monopoly of production when it comes to agriculture. A lot of people are doing it as well. So if you go into small if you go into small scale kind of a farming, then you need to understand that I'm doing this and other people are doing it. And so I need to get into something that pays off really quickly and really fast so that I can break even. There is always a part for you to break even as a farmer if you want to grow. So my advice to you is that if you want to start small, number one, because of the advantages that are there, ensure that you start with something that takes a really short time to mature, really short time for it to get ready to be taken to the market. Because if you go into something that takes an year or 5 months or 6 months, some of you might be thinking, I'm going to buy maybe a lamb, or I'm going to buy whatever it is that you want to buy. As far as it takes a lot of time, let's even assume you go into the famous kind of farming, that is chicken farming, and you decide that I'm only going to buy maybe 10 or 15 chicks, all right? You buy them at 100 shillings, maybe they are broiler chicks, you buy them at 100 shillings, that is around 1500, and then after 3 years, you get to sell them at exactly 300 or 400, a maximum of 500 per piece. What does that mean for you as a farmer? Simply means that the only amount, if you're selling it at 300 and you want to sell it to more people, or 350 or 400, maybe when your market is doing well, it simply means that you're going to make around 4,000 to 5,000 in that time, or 6,000 if you sell them at 400 per piece. What does that still mean? What that simply means is that you spent 1,500, you bought food worth probably around 2,000, you used your own labor only to make a profit of 2,000. Do you see the math? So you've had to wait for 6 to 8 weeks for these things to grow, only for you to make 2,000 or 3,000. You've had to wait for these things to mature so that you can make maybe 4,000. Is it really worth it for you to wait for 2 months to make 5,000? No, it's not, because you could have gotten a job, you could have gotten yourself into something else that could have given you profits. And this is the kind of a dilemma that most young people get into. I remember when we were in campus, a number of my campus friends, some of them wanted to get into farming. Them, of course, that were not in the faculty that I was in. And you could hear someone say, I'm going to get into this one and I'm planning to invest so and so, and then it's going to take you a number of time. All right. And so what that does for you is that it spreads the spreadsheet so much, and it makes it take too long for you to break even. And if it takes too long for you to break even, it simply means you're not in business. You're actually there either for recreation or just having fun. So just do it for food purposes or having fun purposes, but not for business. Because if you have to wait for 2 months to make 10,000, it doesn't make sense. Go and look for a job. A job could pay you better sometimes. Now, what do I advise? Now, if you know that you have the hand to get into maybe chicken rearing, let's go back to that example. Instead of you trying your level best, going to this and that and making a lot of losses so that you can make profits, what I usually advise is that become possibly a middleman. Look for somewhere whereby you can be sourcing the chicken, and then you selling them to your market that you've already established or you've already identified. And then later on, what you can do is that as you're accumulating profits and as you're making profits and time progresses, you can save up, and then now you can have your own chicken at a larger scale or at a larger number than just having 10 or 20 pieces of them, because that is not going to mean any profits for you. It's going to include a lot of work, a lot of pain, and a lot of stress for you to make that kind of profit. It's not worth it in the first place. The struggle is not worth it. So ensure that as you're going into business, first of all, if it's agriculture you want to get into as a young person or as an older person just starting out, my advice is at first, start as a middle person or start as an intermediary, whereby you source from the people who can supply it to you, and then you take it to your market. For like, you give yourself this runway of around 6 months. Look for enough market, ensure that you're making enough profits so that within the 6 months now you can have a plan to exit from being a middleman or the supplier to the people that you take to and become the producer. Because of course, let's be honest, the more you can go lower on the value chain, you remember we had a discussion about value chains when it comes to agriculture, and the more you can get lower, there are kind of 3 levels when it comes to value chains. There are the people who produce, and then there are the people who give you the inputs for you to produce what you're producing, and then there are the people who take it to the market, and then there are the consumers. So you can decide either to produce the medicine or the feeds for the animals, or you can decide that you want to own the animals, or you can decide that you want to be a middleman, or you can be the consumer. So it depends on you. on the value chain, the lower you can get on the value chain, the most advantageous it becomes for you. So if you can get to a point whereby you do not need to rely on other organizations or other businesses for them to offer you the things that you need to produce the results that you need, the better it becomes for you. So if you can decide that, let's go back to our example that we are using, chicken rearing. If you can ensure that you don't need to buy the chicks anymore, that now you can incubate your own eggs, hatch your own chicks, and then ensure that you raise them and sell them to a market, it becomes more profitable for you. But again, let's be honest, the more specialized you are, the more stressful business becomes for you. So if you do not have specialization when it comes to business, if you do not know exactly what level are you at, it becomes stressful for you. So start as an intermediary or the middleman, the person connecting the market and the consumers. And then eventually, as time goes by, you can own your own thing. You can have your own stuff running. That is the only way that you can make profits in business. That is the only way you're going to ensure, number one, you master your expenses. Now, let's go back to what we were talking, a quick recap on the expenses. So when it comes to agriculture, first of all, you tabulate the expenses that you have. You tabulate them and you understand that this is where I start, this is what I need to do, and this is how I do it. Then once you know that, is you get to a level whereby you say, this is how much it's going to cost me. So that is the only way that you can run the business effectively and successfully. So that is on the expenses. Now, let me touch a little bit, of course, on how you bridge the expenses and the income. Now, between you producing what you need to produce and getting to the level whereby you can take it to the market and people buy from you, then we incur another expense, which is the secondary expense in agriculture, which is the expense on marketing and logistics. That is another expense for you as a farmer, because between production, you have a lot of expense for production. Once you have produced what you produce, whether it's a crop, whether it's an animal you're rearing, maybe you have livestock. Once you're done with that, we have what we call post kind of a productivity cost for you. We have what it's going to cost you, the secondary expense. That is on marketing, possibly. That is on sending someone to the ground to go and check for markets for you. That is on sales. All of these things have expenses around them. So you have to calculate and, of course, as well, tabulate the expenses that are secondary to you. So if you spent 2,000 to do the marketing, then this is going to define exactly how much you're going to charge now the final product. Why am I saying this? Now, once you're done with all of this, we are going to talk about pricing your products in agriculture. Remember, this is the Morning Brew. We ensure that we give you everything in the easiest way that you can understand, in the best way that you can get to realize, this is how I'm going to realize my profits. So we've said we have the primary expense, that is the production expense. Number two, you have the secondary expense. This is the facilitation expense, or what we call facilitation. Basically, you have to go to the market. It's going to cost you fuel, and if not fuel, it's going to cost you fare. If not fare, it's going to cost you paying someone to do that for you. And if not even that, it's going to cost you time to ensure that your products get to the market. So this is the secondary expense. And the importance of having this is that you take your primary expense and the secondary expense, you add them, all right? You do an addition of the two so that you can get the total expense. I don't know whether you're getting this. Let the comments come in so that we can get to help you understand. Let me get to understand. Is there something or a question that you have in regards to expenses so that I can break it even better for you? So the primary expense, you add it with your secondary expense, which gives you the total expenses for your production as a farmer. Now, with that, you sit down and decide how much profits do I want to make, and that will give you pricing. But on pricing, I'm going to see you tomorrow in the Morning Brew Show so that we can talk more about how do you now price. You have come up with the expenses. How do you ensure that you price and you make the profits? So remember to tune in tomorrow in the morning on the Morning Brew Show so that we can get to educate you more on how do you price, how do you get it to the market, and how do you make your profits. And of course, still during the week, that is on Monday and Tuesday, we'll also be talking about the go-to market strategy. So we'll be teaching you how do you get your products to the market. Until Monday in the morning, keep it at Chai TV. This is where we bring you insights on agriculture, ensuring that your agricultural understanding and agribusiness kind of vision becomes better for you. Cheers, cheers, cheers. I wish you a good day. I wish you a profitable day. We're looking forward to see you more and more. This is the Morning
future
Brew
of
Show with
farming
your host,
isn't
Benson
coming,
Numa.
it's
Have a
already
good day.
here. Welcome to Shamba Smart Show, where innovation meets the soil. In every episode, we decode smart farming, giving you modern strategies, digital tools, and real solutions to grow better, faster, and smarter. Learn more on how the digital revolution and AI has completely disrupted farming productivity. Stay technologically savvy and ahead of your competitors through the show and through our broadcast every day. I am Benson Numa. Join me on Shamba Smart Show only on Chai TV every weekday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Let's grow smart, let's grow bold. Shamba Smart, where every innovation meets the excellence.